All right, guys, you got some tax money, you got some kind of extra cash that you're wanting to spend, it's burning a hole in your pocket and you want a hot rod. Maybe you want a third gen. Maybe it's a project car, maybe you always wanted one since high school. Or, maybe, you're just looking for a collector's item because they are going up, guys, okay? Guys say what they want, but hey, I'm almost willing to let go of some of my 401 and get me a few of these third gens because they're skyrocketing up, man. So it's crazy what some of these cars are going with. Well, in today's episode, I'm gonna tell you what to look for when you're looking at some of those third gens, okay? I'm also gonna give a guide on which models that may interest you. I know when I was looking for it, I was like, wow, I kind of want an IROC, but I don't know what year is best and which ones had the different features. So I'm gonna also go ahead and cover some of those as well. So stay tuned, guys. Welcome to the Fireball Mullet channel. All right, guys, one tip, you typically don't go look at cars when it's raining. And so that's because it hides a lot of things on the bodywork and everything else. But hey, if a car's got T-tops, you may wanna check it out in the rain or tell them to spray some water on it. I don't know. So the first thing I would do is really check under the lips of these cars here. These things are famous for rusting, okay? You wanna make sure you check this, feel any kind of rubbing, any kind of rough material here. These things are also, they should be metal. So you can kind of, tap on things and try to figure out where the kind of trouble spots are typically on these cars. Get you a little magnet, things should stick on it, right? So, you also kind of want to check lines on the car. Now, I've been spending forever trying to get mine right. When I bought the car, the lines weren't perfect. And so the reason why I'm telling you guys is because I've been having to deal with this shit since I bought the car. So make sure you look at all the lines on the car. For now on, when I buy a car, I want all the lines to be great. If they're not good, that means somebody's been in there. Of course, doors, these Firebirds and Camaros are very known for sagging doors. These doors are super heavy, okay? And it's locked. These doors are super heavy. So, one of the things that you'll find is they tend to sag and they won't shut right, okay? So that's a telltale sign there, or the gap is not right exactly on the car. So that means that you're gonna have to replace the hinges on the door, okay? So that's another thing to kind of take a look at when you first start walking up to the car. Hey, all these things could be done. It's just you gotta figure out which things you wanna do and which things you kind of wanna walk away from, okay? I'm not saying to walk away from some of these issues. I'm just saying be prepared to either fix them or, hey, make the decision. And just kind of looking at the rear, again, this area is known for rust, okay? So, make sure you check the inside of the fender well and all that good stuff as well. Again, that's one of the areas that will definitely rust on the car. So, that's kind of that there. And then you can see here, you also want to check, most of them do this, but the hatch tends to start sliding back, and you can see mine's already doing that now. And it seemed like ever since I put the new hatch struts on that it started pushing this panel here back. So that's something that you can fix, obviously, but that's another area you want to take a look at. Other than that, if it's a T-top car, like I said, if you come see a car in the rain, or maybe the owner, you can ask them, if it's not all super detailed and clean, maybe you ask them, hey, can I put a water hose on it? Normally, you could tell when you go inside the car if you smell a musty smell or the headliner is sagging or, there's a lot of telltale signs there that you have some type of leak on the seals, okay? So you just have to check it out and look for those things because, look, they're there, man. And so, leaking T-tops is very common. And it took me forever to get these things from stop leaking. Believe me, I didn't want to do the interior, and that's why I haven't even done the interior on this car yet, because why do the interior? I drive this car in the rain. Yeah, it's a street car. okay? I'm sorry, Corvette guys, but I drive this car in the rain. Okay, so the other thing is, make sure your seals are good around the T-tops. That's also a sign. Your seals around the door, all your rubber seals, if you want to take a look at that, that's always an indication if the car's been taken care of, or the doors are going to seal, the window seals, all those different things. So seals around the panels is another area to check out. Another thing you can do on the T-tops is go ahead and take the T-tops off, and there's a center bar right here. They call it like a T-bar, okay? Take it off, check that out. That T-bar, if it's rusted, the thing's been leaking, okay? So that's a telltale sign as well. All right, guys, now what I like to do next is go ahead and pop the hood. So walk over, reach underneath here, and pop the hood. All right, guys, so we got the hood open. Obviously, this is not stock, so if you're looking for a stock demonstration, this ain't the car. But I'm still gonna give you some advice on some things around this, because most of this wiring and everything else is pretty much stock, okay? So the one thing that while we're talking about panels and that sort of thing, take a look at where your radiator support is right there. A lot of times if it's been wrecked, it'll be welded there or something like that. So that's one thing to take a look at. And obviously this engine bay has been painted black, but most of the times what I would also do is come in here, and especially if it's supposed to be a very stock vehicle, you know, look for overspray, you know, where they done repaints and that sort of thing. So look along the fender edge here, see if there's any respray on the hood hinges and that sort of thing. And that's another indication that, hey, there's something else going on here. And just ask the owner. A lot of times they're like, yeah, you know, the previous owner, blah, blah, blah. Or, yeah, I had this fender replaced because it was junk. Who knows, okay? Just at least know what you're looking for here, guys. If this were a TPI or TBI or carb or whatever, you know, and you know, you're looking for a stock vehicle, just make sure, you know, typical things that guys do is they pull all the smog stuff off. If you're looking for a stock vehicle, that's obviously something that you want to, you know, keep as stock. So that's something to look out for. Obviously this is all gone, but so you have that. And, you know, just kind of start looking around the engine. Do they have, you know, is it the original engine, right? You can start looking at the numbers for that and trying to compare, and just start doing your due diligence. Now, I'm not going to cover like the basic car stuff to look at, like numbers matching. You know, you guys know, you can watch any video to figure out that. What I'm going to try to cover in this video are really things specific to a third gen, okay? The rest of the stuff, yeah, check the oil, check the trans fluid, check all that stuff, right? And so those are things that you would just do to any car. We're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on third gen stuff, guys. Let's go inside the car. There's a few things that you got to know about a third gen. So let's check it out. Yeah. Now, I know this car isn't the best car to talk about stock cars, but I mean, this car is pretty much stock looking. I've just got some subtle upgrades, if you will. But, you know, this is obviously an aftermarket door handle. On the stock third gens, this is another area. These handles tend to have a lot of play and they're very noisy and that sort of thing. So when you open it up, you can kind of feel that. If you're buying a low mile IROC, GTA, or, you know, Berlinetta, whatever, and they claim it's very low miles, some of the things that I like to do first is look at the steering wheel, okay? Does it look worn? Does it look like a 20,000 mile vehicle, right? You can tell if it's really worn on the steering wheel, then something's not right, guys, okay? The other thing is the brake pedals. You know, take a look at the brake pedals and you'll be able to tell the wear and tear on the brake pedals as well. That's another indication that, you know, on a low mile car that someone's trying to say, hey, this is a, you know, a 15,000 mile car or 30,000 mile car. Those pedals, I mean, look, I'm hard on everything, but you know, the pedals should look pretty good for that, for those low miles. So that's another area. And then also your e-brake handle, all the heavy wear stuff, obviously the seats. All right, guys, we're inside the car. Now, there's a couple things you need to know inside here. Again, you want to make sure no headliners drooping, anything like that. That's just an indication of, hey, it could be a bad headliner. Hey, this is Florida. the heat, everything takes a hit on that glue. That's legit, okay? But it could be an indication there's something else going on with a major leak. Now, people say all these things leak. You can get these things tight, okay? New seals, adjustments, you know, you can work with it and get these things, you know, basically sealed up, okay? So it takes some work, but it can be done. But you can tell as soon as you walk in the car, because under the carpet, under the dash, under the panels, there's all this padding, right? And that stuff can soak up moisture like crazy. And that's really what you smell when you come into an old Thirdgen that's had some indication of some type of water intrusion, right? As soon as you open the door, you just know it, right? Okay, so that's one thing to kind of use your nose, use your eyes, just, you know, use your common sense, guys. All right, guys, you should know about an RPO code, okay? And you would like to see this in the original location. It's going to be in the console. You can kind of see where this originally was, probably here. But the RPO codes are basically kind of your build sheet for the car. Okay, let me take you in here. So you can do an easy search, take a picture of it, and just start searching for what some of these codes mean. They're going to be anything from what the car color was, what the trim package was, what engine option came into it, just all those different things. That's super helpful when you're trying to decode a car and trying to figure it out. It also had the VIN number, so check that against your dash there. Now, guys, when you test drive the car and you're inside the car, okay, you're going to feel all these rattles. You're going to hear these shakes. That's just what these cars do. It's the 80s, man, okay? And if you start taking apart some of these panels, you can understand why a lot of these panels and why a lot of these things make so much damn noise in the car. So when you take the car for a ride, you're going to hear rattles. You're going to hear shakes. The rod and the door panel makes a hell of a noise. Like I said, the door handle itself can, I mean, there's just so many different things here that can make noise in this car. It'll drive you insane, okay? The best thing I can tell you is, you know, you shouldn't really hear any clunks or anything like that. It's just, you'll tell when it's interior sort of rattle, okay? Now, you can do things like put subframe connectors in and start tightening things up, but even like you should go through, there's little tricks you can do of kind of making things where they just fit a little bit better inside here. So don't be discouraged if you take the car for a drive and it sounds like you got all this rattling going on. It's, you know, that's what these cars do, okay? Now, some guys get lucky. They say their car don't rattle. Congratulations. Okay, so just know that, okay? And for me, now I'm starting to get into the interior phase finally because I've pretty much finished all the mechanical stuff. And one of the tricks that I can tell you is you can download some apps on your phone, okay? Put the headphones in, and you can actually have a passenger come with you, and it is for like amplifying sounds. It's like hearing aid apps and things like that, but it amplifies all the sounds. And so you can really take your phone and just move it towards different pieces, and you can really pinpoint where those noises are coming from, and then put some foam around it, figure out the screws, right screws, that sort of thing, and then just deal with it. All right, guys, another thing that you may notice when you're test driving the car, on these cars, basically it's vacuum operated, all the vents, okay? And so when you have some type of vent leak or the sphere or the vacuum ball that basically holds the car's vacuum for the HVAC system here, when you have some type of leak, all of your air comes through basically these vents here. It defaults in defrost as a safety feature, okay? And so no matter what you click this thing on, vent, heat, you know, floor, it's always going to come out of this vent here. So if you're test driving it and, you know, you go through the controls and you're like, man, none of the controls are working, everything's coming through the vent, it's probably just a simple vacuum hose. But the other thing is, this switch right here is notorious for breaking kind of inside, and it has like it holds vacuum as actually part of this switch right here. So there's a couple mods you can look up online on thirdgen.org, and there's a couple fixes for that. So don't freak out over that. All right, guys, speaking of dashes, now, if you have been around Thirdgens at all, these things will crack. If you look at them wrong, they will crack. What you talking about, Willis? Yeah, they'll, if you just look at it crazy, they'll crack, I'm telling you. All right. And that's the thing. So I got lucky. I got a couple small cracks here. It's not too crazy, or I would have went ahead and replaced it. All right, guys, let's go to the trunk here area, the hat. Kind of got my shade off right now because honestly, we're getting ready to do an interior video and all this is coming out, guys. So anyway, one of the things, we were talking about some of the things to check on the body panels. Obviously this is a bad spot for rust here, okay? The back quarter here. So one of the tricks that you can do is you can actually go into this and you can actually reach in here. Of course, you want to empty whatever they got in there. Who knows what they got in there, right? And you can actually see the panel there. So if there's a bunch of Bondo, you'll be able to see that, which is really cool, okay? You could do that on the other side. You just have to kind of take out those little, which I started to there, these little screws here, which is just an amazing design, GM. Thank you for those nice plastic screws. I'm sorry, guys, but I hate that shit. But you can take that off and then plop that off and kind of check out that side as well. I always keep a couple blower belts in here extra. Change a tire. You never know when you're gonna need some of your carbon wire. Oh, Skinner tape. Tire shine. Oh, check this out. This is straight out of the 80s. This is an old school collar to lock your collar here. I kind of went around there, around your collar, around your ignition switch, and then put a padlock right there. Oh, okay. Some 1984 track shoes. Ah, this is where I keep my magnetic vinyl for the functional hood. Roll that up, pop it on the hood when it's really heavy raining. All right, never know when you got a weed eat stuff too. Always want to make sure you got a shop light with you. And of course, you want your fishing rod because you never know when you find a nice bass lake. And it's always nice to keep your trophies here as well. So yeah, so check that out, guys. All right, guys, a couple more things under the hood. Now, another thing these things are notorious for. Now, this is a Astro van sort of modified steering shaft here, but the original ones has a rag joint there. So while you're turning it, you may have a lot of steering slop. So that's the first thing to check there. If you turn the wheel and the wheels don't move, and you can have someone kind of look at this, you can kind of see where it's moving. But also the steering box, which is, up in here, those things are notorious. Also, people adjust them and do all kinds of crazy stuff to try to fix them. And honestly, most of them are just junk. So you may have some steering slop. And of course, if you're AC, and if you're like me, you're living in Florida, this is a very important thing. Now, this isn't the stock setup. I bypassed the switches on this because I run a trinary switch for the swap here. And so I don't have any high or low pressure switches there, but you'll want to check where those are connected typically here. And you can kind of tell when those have been converted to R134 from the original air system. So if that's not done, you probably will have to do that as well. Because they came with the R12 and you'll be able to tell. Like for example, this here, I have a adapter fitting on that. You'll also see on the line, you'll see an adapter fitting there as well. So again, just kind of check for some of those things. Check for, the most common problems, like I said, cracked dash, rust around the quarters and the fender lips there. And you can kind of feel the lips of each one. check your body lines and all that sort of thing. You also may see some spider cracks because these are basically, these are not metal, so it's like a plastic. So you may see some spider cracks here, and that's another indication that you may have to do some kind of paint correction or repaint, respray of the front bumper here. So that's really the big thing, guys. Let's talk about some of the different models that the Camaros and Firebirds kind of came out with. Now, this isn't a complete list, but it's something that may pique your interest here on some of the different models. All right, guys, let's start with Camaros, okay? So, you know the years, 82 to 92, okay? All right, guys, so in 1982, when the Camaro hit, man, you had the Iron Duke. You know what that is? That's basically a 2.5 liter iron block. And it was rated at a punchy 90 horsepower. Okay, so definitely the economical version here. They also had, though, a 2.8 liter V6 that was about 102 horsepower. Then they had the 5.0 carb model. Okay, that was your V8. And that was about 145 horsepower. They also had the 5.0 Crossfire fuel injection that ticked it up to about 145 horsepower there. And then the transmission, you could get an auto 3-speed automatic, the manual 4-speed as well. Of course, you had the option of the hardtop or the T-top in 1982 when these cars were released. So the different models that were available, well, you had the Sport Coupe. That was basically your base trim level, okay? Then you had your Berlinetta. Now, I really dig a Berlinetta. I can kind of see myself one day doing a Berlinetta. It was kind of the luxury version of it. Some of them even had, later had the digital dash and all that kind of cool stuff. So that is very cool. I love Berlinettas myself. Then you raised it one more level. If you wanted the performance, 1982 Thirdgen Camaro, well, that was the Z28. Now, let's talk about 1983. What'd they do different? Well, they had the 4-speed automatic, so that was cool. Had the HO 5.0 for the Z28. That, basically the HO version had higher lifter cam, a little bit larger exhaust, and a quadrajet that was like 190 horsepower and about 240 torque. That definitely kicked it up a notch. All right, when you got to 1980, let's skip to 1985, which is this car right here. You had the IROC Z was introduced, okay? It was basically a trim package on top of the Z28, and it was lower suspension. It had some unique front struts. It also had a Wunderbar that kind of was a little bit more of a brace there in front of the sway bar there near the radiator support. So, it definitely had some additional reinforcement there for the chassis. They typically came with the gator backs on 16x8s. And so that's probably important if you're looking if you find all original ones. Obviously, you're not going to find those probably still on a car this old. And it had the IROC decal package, which is very similar to this car here. It had the stripes that ran along around the car, and then you had the door IROC here, and a couple other little things. It was a healthy 305, and it was a TPI, which is what this car originally came with. It was a 305 TPI car with a 700 R4. Now, you could get that in basically the 305, again, the HO, or the TPI, which is, again, what I got when I originally bought this car. And the TPI was, I think, 215 and, like 275 torque, which, is torquey. The TPIs are torquey, man. They're fun. Automatic, shifting, bam, put a little shift kit in it, man. They're cool, man. Okay, let's go ahead and skip to, in 1986, the thing that different was 1986 was they actually had a rear brake light in the hatch. So that's one of the biggest things that I can tell in 1986. So if you're looking at a car, it's got the tail light in the rear, that's an easy indication it's 86. So 1987, the convertible was introduced, and I didn't even realize this until I started doing a lot of this research, because I don't know this shit off the top of my head, guys. So I just started researching a lot for you guys, and I hope I get all this stuff right. And if I don't, I'm sure you guys will correct me. But hopefully, I kind of fact check myself here. So, but yeah, I mean, the Camaro hadn't had a convertible since 1969. I was like, are you serious? Like, and I started thinking about it. I was like, no, there's no convertible. That's crazy. And that was the 20th anniversary. Okay, so not only did they have the available convertible, had the 20th anniversary edition, okay, with the badge dash there, so commemorating that. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of unique, right? So if you're looking for something a little unique, the 87 is definitely probably one of the unique ones up to this point. And then you could also, what's cool in 1987, they came out with a bang, man. So, you know, we're always like getting the Corvette stuff, right? After the Corvette guys have had it a year or two. So yeah, we've got the 350 TPI available, which, you know, was definitely a lot more potent than that 305. But you can only get the 350 with an automatic, right? You couldn't get it in a stick car. And I think that was like 225 horsepower and 330 torque. So man, we're up in the threes now on the torque. So definitely a lot different there. So a little bit more tire action, gonna spin them out, baby. You know, get some smoke going. Okay. All right, guys, guess what? In 1988, the 1LE came out. It was a G92 code, so I showed you the RPO codes in the center console. Yeah, so the G92 was an option there on your RPO code, so you can check that out. They didn't have any AC, so that would have been a no-go for me. Heavy duty brakes and that sort of thing, aluminum drive shaft, aluminum spare wheel, unique suspension, and fuel starvation modifications for the baffling. I mean, it was a little bit more set up there, guys. And it was a 5.0 TPI. It was a TPI with 230 horsepower, 300 torque. Or you could get the 5.7 TPI with 245 horsepower, 345 torque. So that was definitely a step up. Now let's talk about 1990. Okay, let's just skip right on over to 89. Let's go to 90. The IROC was basically going to be ending with that, and it was going to be, you know, the last year of it. And they had a driver's side airbag in 1990. So that's when we started getting all safety crazy, right? In 91, the IROC Z becomes the Z28 with different ground effects. So the IROC was gone, okay? And they had different ground effects on the bottom, and you guys, you know, if you've seen any, you know the difference there. It also had a higher spoiler in the back, you know, so, which I've never been a fan of those, you know, so sorry guys, you know, I kind of like the subtle spoilers, but that's just me. A lot of guys love the high stuff, so I'm just different. And then in 92, guess what? Now here's another special edition if you guys are looking kind of for that little special car there. So you had the 1LE so far, right? And now in 1992, you could get the Heritage Edition, which was the 25th anniversary, the Heritage Edition, okay? That had some cool stripes on the top and different things like that. Okay, so let's just recap. There's a few more special models out there, guys, okay? You had an 82 Camaro Indy Edition. Okay, it was a Z28 Indy Pace Car Edition, okay, which is really cool. A buddy of mine has that, man. It's a really cool throwback to the 80s pace car kind of deal, man. It's so cool looking. So that's an also unique car if you're kind of looking for something different. And then the 88 Camaro 1LE was something that always stood out. So there's just a few different models for you guys to think about when you're shopping and to consider. Now, I will tell you, if you're, you know, going to get into performance and that sort of thing, if weight means anything to you, the earlier the cars, the lighter these third gens were, and a lot of people don't realize that, but the later the cars got, the heavier these cars got, right? So the 82s were the lightest. By the time they got to 92, man, they were getting up there. So obviously the airbags and, you know, just things started with the safety and reinforcement just started weighing more. So just know that. All right, guys, let's talk about some Pontiacs. You want to buy a Pontiac? Let's just talk about some of the facts here, the fun facts, okay? Hey, maybe this video will help you figure out which bird you want, okay? So, you know, with Firebirds, they shared about 60-70% of Camaro parts. You know, it wasn't like the old Pontiacs where they had the Pontiac engine and that sort of thing. The engines, you know, were all from, you know, basically Chevrolet. And so you know, both the Camaro and Firebird shared a lot of parts, including all the engines except for, I think the Pontiac had a 4-cylinder that wasn't used in the Camaro. But the Firebird stood out on its own style, man. So, I mean, it's a really just a whole different style when you look at the Firebirds. And with things like the pop-up headlights and the slope nose, you know, in terms of the power, you know, the base model, the special edition SE, all the way to the top of the Trans Am, you know, they also had, you know, in terms of some of the power options, they had a 2.5 liter four banger with the throttle body injection. It was 90 horsepower. Both cars, 4-speed manual and an option 3-speed auto. You had the Trans Am, which had the 5.0, 305 V8 that was like 145 horsepower, 240 torque. And, you know, the Trans Am could be bumped up, you know, to about 20 horsepower with the Crossfire fuel injection, which, you know, if you're going to buy it for that, some guys don't like the Crossfire. So, you know, some do, some don't. So just do your research on there. But the Crossfire is going to be a little different for you. So the Crossfire kind of brought it up another 20 horsepower. And then it also, with that model, had a fresh air sort of design in the hood where it got, you know, the air cleaner and that sort of thing, got fresh air straight from the hood. So, which was a really cool thing. And I think one of my videos in Rate My Subscribers Third Gen, one of my buddies there had one of those, which is really cool. So some of the models, you had the Base Bird, the SE, where the special edition had, the SE added a full width black taillights. It had body color molding, you know, the lower accent paint, you know, with some of the striping there. And then the Trans Am, they call it TA, that added a contoured driver's side bulge on the hood with a cow induction light kind of rear facing scoop, which was really cool. And the hood and sail panel, you know, they were Firebird decals on it. And the fender had fender air ducts in it, you know, for the air extractors. So that was really cool. And there was also, which I think, you know, if you're looking at some of the cool birds that are out there, you know, they got like the Firehawk, and they've got the TTA, which was actually a turbo 6-cylinder, which is very cool. And so there's a couple of cool additions that you can find out there on the birds as well. So, you know, all this stuff is out there, guys. You know, take a look at it. Hopefully this gets you kind of excited about some third gens and kind of how they're different, how, you know, the different models and how they're sort of set up. Tell me some of the things that you like about third gens. What's some of the models that I miss? Comment below, and this is a community thing, guys. And so that's what I kind of love about this. All right, guys, that's today's episode. I hope you got something out of this. If you're shopping for a third gen, go check them out. Thanks for tuning in, and please subscribe to the channel if this is helpful.